Hey all, and welcome back to the penultimate part of Professor Layton and the Curious Village. We will be making our way back into town soon enough, but before we do that, we actually have another puzzle available in the sewer from the caretaker. So this is one that you can easily miss, but if you feel like going back into the sewer for whatever godforsaken reason you may have to want to go back into the sewer, you can come talk to Sylvain here, and he will have Puzzle 92 Wash Up. Now, this one is another, I guess I could class this as another visual puzzle. It's following the water along the pipes, and you've got to open up as few valves as possible to get it to flow through into the bucket. So this one, I'm just going to show which ones they are in just a sec. I was trying to time that a little bit better, but I guess I didn't quite pull it off. If you just open those two, they're the only ones you have to open to be able to get the water flowing through as it's supposed to.
Professor, I've solved it!
There we go, get the little diagram, and I will say that this is one of just 2 puzzles that we'll be covering in this video, because this chapter is the most story heavy of any of the chapters, at least compared to the ones we've done up to this point. Obviously the finale is going to have a lot of story as well, as you'd imagine, but this part is almost entirely talking to people, and we're going to get some really cool moments in this chapter, so I'm actually okay with that. I know it's a puzzle game and you would expect most of the gameplay to just be here, giving you puzzle after puzzle after puzzle, but we've had a lot of chapters like that, so now to kind of take a step back and just see what's going on with the residents here, what's going on with the story, what's so mysterious about the Curious Village itself. This is like the right moment, and one thing that does become quite apparent from about this point on now is that Layton has pretty much got an idea of what's going on. Right now he's asking Beatrice about the papers, and there don't seem to be any papers, which is curious in its own right. This is one factor that I have seen people note as something they're not too keen on when it comes to this game, in that although we've been solving puzzles along the way, that's what the main gameplay is. We've been solving the villagers' puzzles as they've given them to us, we've been solving the hidden puzzles and whatnot, and a lot of them do thematically tie into the character that's given them to us. The actual mysteries themselves, the story-based ones, are kind of just spelled out to you. And that is a problem to some people. I personally don't mind that. And the reason being is that I feel that it kind of... we have enough puzzling going on with the puzzles themselves, so I'm not too fussed about the narrative being more linear. This here, we're seeing the same mysterious little girl that we saw earlier, and as with all the other villagers that we've encountered so far, she also seems hesitant to let us near the tower. She knows that we've got that on our mind, that we got the key and whatnot, but yeah, she doesn't seem to want us to go there. Party? For us? That's nice, Matthew. I hope nothing bad is going to happen. I do feel kind of bad for Matthew, honestly. Like, he gets a lot of shit from Lady Dahlia, and then during moments like this in the plot, he's the one who's gonna have to come and confront us like he just did. He's gonna be the first person who has to talk to us when there's clearly something going wrong. But our good friend Dickhead Chelmy wants to talk with us. And we're getting accused of fucking murder. I'm gonna be honest here, when I got to this point in the game, it had been quite a little while since I last thought about Simon's death. Like, for probably the most dramatic thing to have happened in the entire game. It's kind of surprising that I'm able to just forget about the fact that somebody died. But this is the other mystery going on here. This vase that we were just handed out of nowhere earlier in the game. Turns out that's the murder weapon. So I'm starting to feel like we might be getting framed here somehow. Just a bit of a hunch. Like, is this a good idea for everyone to just be handing it to each other when they're using the fingerprints as evidence? Yeah, like, I'm pretty sure destroying evidence is kind of frowned upon. That's like one of the big no-nos in law. I'm getting excited, and I'm not saying too much, because this is a lead up to arguably one of my favourite moments in the game, and arguably one of my favourite moments from anything I've played. We've got a really cool takedown coming up. Yeah, it does seem that way. It seems like he's got everything set out against us, although, to be fair, he has kind of been doing that throughout the entire game. He seemed to have had something against us ever since we first spoke to him. And it does seem like that whole "you're smarter than me" vibe going on that he doesn't like, but I'm just spitballing. Maybe there's something else to this. Maybe he's got some other motives.
No, Inspector, it has quite a bit to do with you.
Meaning?
Isn't it obvious?
If there is any criminal element involved in this case, then it is you, sir. What? That's absurd.
Hey, calm down.
What utter rubbish! You'll need more than some death charge to save your hide.
So, Layton's playing the card back now, and this is honestly fantastic. I will say part of why I really like that cutscene that just played, and this is carrying on through here, is just the complete lack of music now. It's like we've had the gentle, atmospheric music all the way through the game up to this point, but now it's getting real. Happen to have a fondness for Jane's cakes, do you, mate? God, Layton is a badass. This is something that I really like. I really like just getting to see smart characters outsmarting people, and that's exactly what this breakdown is. Like, granted, the other outcome there could have been that he genuinely did forget his wife's name, and that would have been funnier, but I don't quite think that's what's going on here. And that's another good point, because I did clock on to the thing about the cakes. It was inconsistent that he was mouthing off at Matthew about cakes when there was the article of how he liked cakes. But this one I didn't really pay much attention to at the time. The fact that no one was able to get in or out of the village after Weird arrived because the crank at the gate was broken. But somehow he managed to show up. So that is a little inconsistency that I hadn't clocked onto. And like, this is another thing that I imagine that's the sort of thing that some people would have preferred that to have been another puzzle as well, that we would have had to have worked out, rather than just having the multiple choice things with text dialogue. But, you know, I feel like just letting Layton do his thing here is honestly more effective. This is a good point, but also the girl we met outside seemed to know that we had the key as well. So maybe that's something that we need to also consider. Maybe it's like word gets around. I would say that's probably the least damning of the three claims that he's making here. Although, to be fair, with the other two claims, they're pretty solid enough for us to just use as evidence. They like condemn him by themselves. The last one is just like the little bit of icing. Seems like someone has a bit of a grudge. So, there we have it. The mask is off. This is Don Paolo. This is the guy who's been stalking us around the town. He's the guy who was leaving his room in the inn in a really bad way, which is arguably the main bad thing he's done, but I kid. But, like, he's got the kind of design that, had he not been in disguise, we would have clocked onto this right away. He's basically got the whole Dr. Wily design down pat, and his motive here, I will say, does seem a little bit flimsy, that he's just got this grudge against Layton, that there's a lot that hasn't been explained here, but by the same token, it's the kind of game where it doesn't really have to explain everything. Sometimes just having you thought this guy was on your side, but he wasn't, and then you've got all the other pieces of the puzzle from along the way that condemn him. You don't really need some complex backstory, so it's something that maybe could have been fleshed out a bit more, but it doesn't really need to be either. But there's Layton mentioning that his history with that guy, he hasn't interacted with him directly that he knows of, but he does know that this guy has had quite a shaky history. And that is another point. There are still mysteries unsolved in the village, so like, we know who the big bad is now. We know who's up to something and who's been doing things wrong, but our job here isn't done. We still need to find out what's going on with the other villagers. We need to have a little poke around and see if we can find the golden apple, whether that's still a thing that we need to worry about. And this screen, the first time we've seen it, this is where we start to tick off all the mysteries as we find out about them. So it's been quite a long time since we collected a lot of those, so if you've forgotten about them, I can completely understand that. It's been a little while since we last saw that screen, but over the course of the next chapter, we will be ticking them off one by one as everything starts to come together. So yeah, there's our prompt now to go back to our original mission and try to figure out what's going on with the golden apple. See, this is the sort of thing in real life that dreams mean nothing, but dreams are very powerful in fiction, so we should probably pay attention to this. Lady Dahlia, who is the Baron's second wife after his first wife died, has been having dreams about having a child and taking that child out for a walk in the park. And she doesn't have children of her own, so that's interesting. Like, granted, the brain with how it works, sometimes it just does pull things together, or at least it's kind of a bit of a mixture of things you're familiar with, because I recall reading somewhere once that your dreams, the way your brain works, it can't just create things from nothing. It's like with faces and whatnot, if you can't just imagine a face that you haven't seen before, you have to have seen a face and your brain just kind of recalls it from memory. And I'm curious how they came about that discovery and how genuine that is, because that seems like it'd be a very difficult thing to try and study. Because like, honestly, who remembers their dreams to start with? Like, I only tend to remember a dream if it's really messed up, if there's something really going wrong with me one night, and then I only remember it for like an hour or so and then I forget about it. But also, how do you recognise every face you've ever seen before? How can you tell the difference between a face that you imagined versus a face that you've seen a while back? Like, sometimes people tend to dream about people they know and whatnot, and that's kind of fair enough, but if you've seen a face you don't recognise in a dream, then that really doesn't mean much. That could be anyone. But here we have Martha again, who is still as creepy as ever, but she has the other puzzle we'll see in this part. This is puzzle 105, rolling a 3, and this is a very easy puzzle. So you've got the information there of the chances of rolling a 3, rolling a 3 times in a row, that being 216, and it's asking you what the chances are of the fourth roll being a 6. And it's faking you out a little bit, because you start to picture the idea of, like, well, okay, what's the chances of getting 4 in a row? But that's not actually what it's asking you. It's just asking you about that one roll. So all you've got to know is that 6 sides on the die, and it's going to be 1 of 6. So yeah, like, if you misread that or you don't properly understand what they're asking you, it might catch you off, but the puzzle itself, what it's actually asking you, is very easy to figure out. Please stop hitting on Professor Layton already. You look at least 20 or 30 years older than him, it's a little bit weird. But here we are. We were looking for a way in last time we were here, but we've gained some new information and a new key since then. That's an oddly specific keyhole there, but it does also seem quite familiar in placement. If you remember this map here that we picked up, we can just put the key in that one particular hidden away spot. And we're into the tower. Ladies and gentlemen, join me next time where we'll be going into the tower and finding out the mysteries of Saint Mystere. Bye bye for now.